Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So what is better than one 7.4 exploration guide a day? Second one, right? So I do know that there are a lot of people quite actively waiting for these guides and kind of being very patient. So I do want to speed this up. So I want to put up 7.3 guide today, and then hopefully tomorrow I'll either do 7.4, well, the rest of them, or at the very least I'll try to do two of them as well, just so you guys can plow on and clear the content. So as per usual with these 7.4 exploration guides, if you are in big of a rush, take your screenshot now, because this is effectively the write-up for the entire quest. The best counters, the brief kind of like the descriptions and distinctions of the fights, kind of like few things to note, and then here we have the boss fights that you can take a screenshot of right now as well. Again, I will show these texts throughout the video and again highlight them at the very end. But if you are in a rush and if you do hate the sound of my voice or do not want to watch the rest of the video, then here you go. Screenshot this, and I hope this has helped you. But now let's jump into the details of all of the lanes and break them down and explain what makes them tricky, what is their identity, and what you're meant to do and what you should do and what's the best thing to do. So this ticking time bomb is just a bullshit node. Honestly, it's not worth playing in it. The base idea is that you get rewarded by parry, but if you parry 5 times, then you get punished by it. And also hitting block is punishing. So it's kind of like a conundrum there. And honestly, these 3 node combination, just ignore it. You can parry still, now and then. You can sneak in a few parries throughout the fight. I believe it's up until 4 parries, right? And then just don't. So bring in your Ghost, bring in your Kitty Pryde, bring in your Tigra, bring in Hyperion or any champions that do not have parry heavy playstyle, and just go through it. Honestly, it's not worth dealing with those nodes there. The benefits are not really worth it, and yeah, just don't parry. It's not that hard. And most of the champions that are fairly doable, like Cyclops, not too bad. Hyperion, you don't have a need to parry because he's going to be throwing special attacks all the time. And yeah, there we go. We have like Icarus and Karnak. That is the hardest fights. Really not too bad. Icarus might be slightly annoying. But yeah, just ignore the nodes, don't parry, and you'll be fine. Bring in your stronger non-parry champions. Now, this Paradox block Entropic Extinction path is an absolute treat. You can have tons of fun here with all your damage over time champions. So that means pull out your Black Widow Deadly Origins, Ultrons, Joe Fixits, anything that inflicts a ton of bleeds, shocks, incinerates, or whatever you want to do. And you are going to have an absolutely fantastic time here, because you're going to be doing a lot of damage for all of your damage over time debuffs. It is a Paradox lane, so you will start power locked, but you parry opponent 3 times, power lock goes away, and every time you parry, obviously you gain a Paradox charge, which is going to increase the potency of your damage over time effects. But whenever you do want to get rid of a Paradox charge, then just intercept the opponent. But you don't really need to focus on it. You can also just avoid, parrying and avoid intercepting, get yourself to like 7-8 charges initially, and then just let damage over time effect do your work. We have Foresight, and Now You See Me node. 10-second timer is very generous, that you don't really have to worry about that falter too much, to be honest. And Foresight works perfectly with Elsa, Bloodstone, and Mole Man to get those assisted, super safe, guaranteed intercepts and have even 200% attack increase. Honestly, that was some filthy fun here with Mole Man, with Joe Fixit, with Elsa, with plenty of other champions. Really, really fun lane. But speaking of less fun lanes, we need to jump to this next one. And this is the Hot Potato Meltdown node, where the base idea is at the start of the fight, you get a meltdown timer for 30 seconds. When you use your when you use a special attack, the timer gets thrown to the opponent, but its duration is reduced by 5 seconds. When opponent uses special attack, it gets thrown back at you. So it's basically kind of game of hot potato. The rest of the nodes here are fairly irrelevant. Redlining kind of need to be kept in mind, that you can't go past 2 bars of power really. So you can get 2 and a bit bars of power, or you will be power drained, which can be painful. Every time an opponent uses special attack, they will go stun immune. But it is an active buff that you are able to nullify and benefit from. Just FYI, in case you do want to use a cheeky Doom or something like that. And special attacks are unblockable. So what is the best way to deal with this lane? Well, number one, you can just ignore it. You can bring in champions that are immune to the damage under conditions like Ghost with Trinity, Hood Synergy, and you don't need to worry about Meltdown Timer at all whatsoever. If it expires, just make sure you're phasing, you're going to take no damage. You can bring in Kitty Pryde. Again, whilst you're phasing, you take no damage. You don't really need to pay attention to it. You can play safely. Hercules is a great option here as well, just because even if you do get caught, you have immortality, and then you just go ham at the opponent anyways, and you finish off the fight without much problem. Alternate option is do not let opponents use the special attacks, because that's kind of the point of the node. You want to use your special attack, and then you want to prevent opponent from using their special attack. So Dr. Doom does that fantastic, Magic does that fantastic, Punisher 2099 does that absolutely fantastic, or any other power control options. Lastly, also you can benefit from the fact that all of the opponent's special attacks will be unblockable, and just to have a bit more extra confidence in the fights, and if you do want a bit of help for yourself, you can just bring in Miles if there is a special attack that you worry about evading, because opponent's special attacks will be unblockable, means Miles will, guaranteed phase through them. So not too bad, fairly straightforward. Again, you can either prevent opponents from using special attacks, bring champions that can bypass or ignore that damage, or just, play along and play hot potato there. Next, Paradox, Dodge, Entropic Burn, Quantum Surge, Power to Cover. Now this entire fight thing can be done with any champion, so my suggestion is just bring in your best champions, or bring in the champions that you kind of want to use against the boss. Because the idea is that initially you need to get in 3 dexes, otherwise you will be suffering from, opponent's going to be gaining power over time until you get those dexes in. But you also do want to get those Paradox charges, so you can start burning that power, because every time you will use a special attack, you will drain opponent's power based on how many Paradox charges you have, and whenever you parry, you will lose a Paradox charge. So you kind of ideally want to, again, dex, some 5, 6, 7 times, and then just don't parry, don't dex, and keep those Paradox charges where they are at any given moment, and spam your special attacks. You never have to worry about pushing opponent's special 3, because every time you use special attack, you will be power draining them. Easy peasy lemon squeezy, and just use whatever champions you like. Power to cover doesn't matter. None of those other things matter. Only thing matters is that whenever you throw your special attack, opponent's going to basically get power drained to 0 power if you have enough Paradox charges. So bring in special spammy champions. Honestly, I just listed kind of like the best champions in a game for this, because why not, right? Use your Nick Fury, Hercules, Dr. Doom, Hyperion, CGR, APOC, have fun, take your most best champions, and do whatever you want, because these nodes are extremely generic, open for everybody, and if anything, you just need to pay attention to the fights that are on this lane, and the only kind of somewhat annoying fight, I think, there is Nova, and Longshot is kind of a bit iffy, Nova and Longshot, but they're not really the hardest ones either, and then you have like Sassy at the end or something. But yeah, any champions really can deal with these nodes, and there's not much to worry about. Just work with the Paradox, make sure you have enough Paradox lanes and Paradox charges. Every special attack will power drain them, so any champion that can throw special attacks freely, good to go. Right, the next lane, we have this superiority, underdog, this combo, whatever, doesn't matter, ignore it all. Go with Civil War Zone. And Civil War Zone is perfect node for Ronan, and you're not meant to do that. I will explain how the node is meant to work and how this interaction is meant to work in a second, but what you need to know is Ronan can do every single fight here. Just bring in Ronan and nuke everything down. Only side note is you need to remember that this last fight against Ultron, you will not be able to stun lock him because he will have armor ups, and armor ups reduce your ability accuracy, but Ronan still is capable of doing a ton of damage here once opponent does get his buffs up, and you're going to win the fight that way. So Ronan can do this entire lane by himself pretty much. Now alternatively, you can still use several other mystic options, like Mordo, for instance, can do these fights extremely well too. Because return policy doesn't really affect Mordo, as we can see, whenever you would nullify a buff, they would gain a 60% of bar power. If you nullify many buffs, they will immediately get to level 3. So if you want to use a Mystic champion, you need to kind of have power control in it. But you can also, again, use champions like Mordo, for instance, because they're just going to be taking a ton of damage or time effects. And Dr. Doom as well, because with Dr. Doom, once you start nullifying, you're going to be putting champions in the Doom cycle, so to speak, and they will not really get a chance to throw their special 3 if you play Doom very carefully. Magic can do some very cool things here as well, because you can start this entire thing by power locking the opponents and letting them stack up a ton of armor buffs, and then once they do have a ton of armor buffs active, just drop a level 3, nullify all of them, and they're gonna absolutely melt into oblivion. So magic can do some really cool things here as well, and because of power lock, obviously you don't have to worry about the level 3. Right, the entire idea here is that you use class disadvantage champions, so you bring in your mutants and your techs, and then you dex, and every time you dex, you put a disorient on the opponent, and when you put disorient on the opponent, then you basically meant to switch off this Civil War Zone node, and they don't get their armor breaks and armor ups and furies. But it's really not worth it. Just Ronan it, honestly. 5-star rank 3 Ronan, it really is not worth playing these nodes here. So my advice here is Ronan goes bar. Ronan Doom Magic. Mojo can be very fun. Mojo can also do some filthy work here, because Mojo technically doesn't nullify. And when they use their special attack, they're going to get the Furies that will expire pretty much immediately, and they're going to take a ton of degens. Longshot can probably nuke it later on with like level 2. That also could be quite interesting. I would build up quite a lot of buffs with Longshot, drop a level 3 to kind of get rid of power, and then drop level 2 later on, because they will get to level 3 after Longshot's level 2. But if you're clever, you can just amass a lot of buffs on the opponent and then nuke it with one level 2. As I mentioned, Mordo, you can always use Quake, or you can just play the node with mutant tech champions, bring in any of your mutant and tech champions, dex a bunch, get disorients on them, and, you know, then play it as you will. But where's the fun in that? Where is the fun in that? Right, and the last path here, we have Cosmic Fracture, Tactical Recycling, Ionized Armor, Powerful Divine Barrier. It's basically any Cosmic Champion pretty much does well here, or most of the Cosmic Champions do well. Only thing to keep in mind here is do not knock the opponents down if they have 6 or more armor breaks on them. But the base idea is, with your light attacks, you're going to be putting armor breaks on the opponents left, right, and center, doing more damage. And you can have a ton of fun here with Corvus, with Hercules, with OG Thor, with Venom, King Groot, Odin, Cersei, I don't know, Carnage, plenty of champions. The only key is, yeah, just make sure that you don't knock them down with 6 or more armor breaks, or you're going to take a burst of damage. But it is also very fun and very easy lane. Absolutely not much to stress about here. And then we have boss fights. Then we have the 3 boss fights that we're going to take a look in the second. Where are those doing? So, right. I'm going to start with the easiest one, in my opinion, is Purgatory with this Hubris node, which basically means you can hardly do any damage to Purgatory except during her special attacks. And that is kind of specifically made for Power Stings, typically. So obviously your best options are Power Sting champions, Yellow Jacket, Spider-Ham, Mr. Fantastic plus She-Hulk synergy. Those do the best. But also, any damage or time effects that are being dealt during that special attack are very useful here. So you can use Torch. Torch did a fantastic job. For instance, Void can do a very good job. It's going to be a bit slower fight, but you're going to be able to control her power relatively well. And every time she throws special attack, all the damage that Void's abilities do during that time kind of get amplified. So it's a fairly easy fight, honestly. Just bring in Power Sting or Human Torch and you are good to go. Now, this King Groot, honestly, it's kind of annoying that Apex Predators against King Groot is quite frustrating. The base idea is you are consistently measuring each other's wieners, who has bigger wiener at end of 30-second timer in the context of this game, who has more buffs. So you're competing to having more buffs than opponents. So obviously you can approach it in 2 different ways. Well, 3 actually. You can A, get rid of all of King Groot's buffs, and you can do it by either applying a ton of debuffs to him, so he has to purify him with his Fury buffs, or by just flat out nullifying them. Or B, you can try and build up as many buffs as you can yourself. Be careful of power buildup and supercharge, which also gives him, like, you know, additional buffs there. So perhaps nullification is the best way to go. So those are the first two ways how to compete with that, and the third way is just ignore it. Let him win, but beat him in the war, right? So let him get the benefits of this node, which is basically losing all his buffs, but then having 500% Fury buff and unblockable passive applied to him. But it doesn't matter really, you can still do the normal damage. So if you do want to compete with him, you can do it with like Doom, Tiger, Claire, or well, Doom, for instance, just nullify all of his buffs, have your Fury buffs active. You can give Odin's pre-fights, for instance, to Tiger and Claire, and you can probably beat him in the buff count and just keep on nullifying all of his buffs. But I personally just use like Kitty and Ghost, and I didn't bother with whether he gets that 500% Fury or not. And, you know, just phase with Ghost. You don't need to take block damage, so what's the problem? So those are the best options. Doom, Tiger, Claire. I should have mentioned Odin's pre-fights can be helpful there. And then you have like Kitty and Ghost and stuff. And this final boss, I actually didn't enjoy this boss too much, I don't know. We have Staggering Beauty, Unstoppable Force, Fight or Flight, Boost Buff Unstoppable, and Steady Perseverance. The base idea is that you do want to go unstoppable with this Fight or Flight, because if you are unstoppable, you get 100% increased. The duration of if you're unstoppable is increased by 100%. Additionally, while the attacker is unstoppable, they gain a passive Fury, granting 140% attack damage. So whilst you are unstoppable, you will be dealing basically double the damage kind of thing. But obviously, if you spend a lot of time next to MCOC, you're going to be getting those staggers placed on you. So either way, you can just dance around. Torch is still probably the best option. Void works fantastic. Mr. Negative is great because he's immune to Nullify. And then you can also use Spider-Man 2099. Why not? You can bring in Cable and just, you know, parry heavy the guy pretty much. And also Thing. Those are kind of like the better options. I don't know. I didn't enjoy this fight too much. I think these are some of the least favorite bosses, MCOC and King Groot here for me. So I pretty much always ended up doing the Purgatory because that was quite fun, enjoyable, and quick fight. But here we are. I do hope this video was helpful to you guys. And if you liked it, surely share it with your friends, teammates, alliance mates, all that other good stuff. And hit that like button and whatever else that you do. Right, that is it for now. And I'm going to catch you guys soon. See ya.
Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about the